think we'll get started. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce. My name is Laura Hodgkiss. Apologies if I'm repeating myself for those of you that have already joined us. We are delighted today to have Michelle Smith and Hayley Smith with us, and they'll be doing their webinar today on Well-Connected Stafford. And I assure you it's going to be absolutely fantastic. There's some really exciting stuff coming out of Stafford today. Just so you know, we are recording it today, so if you do need to jump off at any point, it's not a problem. We will be sending you a copy of it. And anybody that misses it today, it's not a problem. We do have it on our webinar library, so you will be able to catch up that way as well. Like I said, we are recording the session today, so if you do not want to be seen, please take your camera off. And again, there will be chances at the end of the session to ask any questions to Michelle and Hayley, should you want to, or again, if you want to pop anything in the chat, you can do as well. With all that said and done, Michelle, it's over to you.
Thanks, Laura. I'm just looking for my PowerPoint.
Not a problem.
So I'm going to talk to everybody about the developments that are up and coming in Stafford before handing over to Hayley, who's going to talk to everybody about homelessness prevention, which doesn't sound like it's connected, but it absolutely is. So hopefully you can now see my slides. Wonderful. Okay, so Well-Connected Stafford. So basically, in Stafford Borough over the last couple of years, we have had some big funding announcements. We've had some big policy changes, and we've had a swell of activity, particularly around the town centre. So what I wanted to talk to you today specifically was working from the town centre out, what's going on in Stafford. So the Well-Connected Stafford vision is essentially, we are fantastically located in the country. We have a mainline railway station, we have access to airports, we have two, arguably three motorway junctions. We are perfectly placed to encourage businesses, visitors and residents into our borough. And underpinning all of that is the importance of our town centre. I don't need to tell anybody how difficult things have been over the last 14, 15 months, particularly for retail. I think we all know that the retail market's been changing a lot over the last probably 10 years or so. And a lot of that's been exacerbated by the COVID situation. So basically what we've done at the Borough Council is identify the things that we need to do to strengthen our town centre, to make sure that all of our economic growth opportunities and all of our opportunities to bring people into the borough are absolutely maximised. So this little map here, hopefully you can see all the little notes on there. These are sort of the key developments that we have in and around the town centre, and I've just made a note on the side just to give you an idea of the scale of investment that we've got certainly within Stafford town, and then looking at the wider borough. So anyone that lives anywhere between Castlefields and Doxy Road is more than familiar with the Stafford Western Access route, which I can now advise, subject to some consultation, will be known as Unicorn Way, a little nod to the former Unicorn factory at one end of the road. So that's £63 million worth of investment. That's a huge investment for what's actually a relatively modest length of road. But what that does is it changes the movement of people getting in and out of the town centre. Anyone that's tried to get past the railway station between sort of 7:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning and tea time at night, very difficult. The Western Access route will actually take traffic from the Newport Road through Castlefields and up towards the Stone Road without clogging around the town centre. So it's a huge piece of infrastructure. I think going back now 3 or 4 years, possibly, we opened the Riverside Retail. So that's where we've got the flagship Marks and Spencer's, the cinema. So that area there completely revitalised our Riverside offering. I'll come back to the town centre transformation plan because I'm going to go through that in great detail. But essentially, the Borough Council have been awarded £14.3 million from the Future High Streets Fund, which is topped up to over £20 million by the Borough and County Council to look at how we bring significant and sustainable investment into the town centre. Completely different, Victoria Park. Anyone that's been into the park will know we are super, super proud of this at the borough. So a £2.5 million restoration project. It looks stunning. If you haven't been down there, do go and have a look. A lovely new cafe. There's lots of history of the park now throughout. And that was funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund. And as a gateway into Stafford, coming off the train, going into the town centre, it's such a unique asset for a town like Stafford. And then finally, we've got £1.6 million is going into the Shire Hall. So again, it's a building right in the centre of Stafford, very visible, hasn't had any activity for the last few years, but the County Council was successful in getting some funding from the Getting Building Fund. So you'll notice a bit of a theme where I keep referencing funding. Over the last 18 months or so, the availability of funding has increased significantly. So at the borough and county councils, we're making the absolute most of that. So 4 things that I've noted that are in progress because they all impact on the vitality of the town centre. The Stafford Station Gateway site, which I'll come on to. So this is a 28-hectare site to the west of Stafford Railway Station. It's been on the books for a little while, but we've had a flurry of activity this year. Eastgate redevelopment is essentially, it's the area around the former Magistrates Court, lots of public sector buildings and giving them a new lease of life. To the left of the picture, we've got Burley Fields. So this is a 1,500 home development location, already on site. Some people are already in. And basically, these are the people that are going to be living and working in Stafford that we want to be accessing the town centre through the Station Gateway site. So we start to make this kind of link through the different development sites. And then we also have 3,000 homes at what's known as the Stafford North development location. So when I say there's a lot going on in Stafford, there really is. So the well-connected Stafford vision, essentially we have our corporate business plan at the Borough Council, which has just been refreshed, that talks about a prosperous and attractive borough with resilient communities. Brilliant. What does that mean though? So the Stafford Borough Economic Growth Strategy, which isn't a Stafford Borough Council document, it's a partnership document. So this was developed by the Borough Council, the County Council, police, housing providers, town centre partnership, the chamber, who all came together to say what we want is to develop a high value, high skill, innovative and sustainable economy. But what does that mean for Stafford Town Centre? What we see there is that we want Stafford to be transformed into the best town centre to live in the UK. That doesn't mean that the only thing you have in your town centre is residential addresses. What it means is that we're looking to create a blend of places for people to live, places for people to work, places for people to go and enjoy, so that when they are earning their money, they then spend it in Stafford, in our Stafford businesses. And so it strengthens that local economy, which then takes us all the way back to our corporate business plan of having resilient communities. So I've shamelessly put in a picture of Victoria Park because, like I say, we are super proud of it. It looks absolutely beautiful. And to be honest, this photo was taken a little while ago, and constantly things are changing. Obviously, we've got the flowers out now, so it looks even more beautiful. So I'll whiz past that because you'll be sick of me talking about the park. Just a couple of pictures of Burley Fields that I mentioned earlier on. Again, I took these about 6 weeks ago. These houses are all occupied now. That's the kind of speed that we're looking at with these developments. I think it's fair to say during lockdown, with a very small exception of time, our experience was that the construction industry kept going. Certainly in terms of planning applications at the borough, we saw over a 25% increase in stuff coming through. So that willingness and that commitment to develop is absolutely still there. So this is, for anyone that doesn't know Stafford so well, this is the Stafford Western Access route I talked about. Believe it or not, these photos are taken about 3 hours apart. So basically the road here, this is a roundabout at the top of Castlefield. So traffic comes off the Newport Road, goes over the Swar Road here, and basically it pops out by Halfords on the Stone Road and then takes traffic north. The reason you've got this slightly odd looking photo with lots of rubble and stuff here is this is part of the station gateway site. So it's just to give you a bit of a location of where we're talking about. Seamlessly, as if I'd planned it, here is a picture of the station gateway. So this picture's been knocking around for a little while now, and it basically gives a flavour of the kinds of development that we're looking for in this site. So you can see all the mixture that you would expect: residential, employment, office and leisure. Most importantly, a station entrance to the west side of the station. We think that's really important. All those people that I just talked about living in Burley Fields, the 400 houses that are already occupied on Castlefields, we don't really want to encourage them to use the station and then say, oh, well, actually, can you just hop onto Newport Road and go around the front? And so we want to open up that station because we think rail travel is really, really important. What I would say is this is the drawing that you will have seen before. Over the last 12 months, what we've been doing is a more detailed master plan to actually say, can the market as it stands now bear things like office accommodation? How much residential development can this site commercially deliver? So we're just coming to the conclusion of that. So I'll be talking to the Chamber again very soon about where we go next with the gateway, because the next stage for us is actually engagement with businesses and residents. And this is just an idea. It's not fixed, but this is just an idea of the kind of look and feel that we're going for with the station gateway development. Green is very important. This isn't just a case of putting some development in an area where there's some space. This is about creating a really nice place and a really nice experience. And also, I quite like the idea of, I don't know what this is, but it looks fun. Right, okay, if I move on to the future high street. So there's been quite a lot in the press on the future high street. If I have a slight glow to me now, it's because I am now talking about my baby. So I've been working on this now for 2.5 years. It's a huge, huge initiative for Stafford. So this is a national funding stream that basically said, and this was started obviously before COVID, retail is struggling. We need to look at how we reinvigorate our high streets to make sure that the retail that works is sustained, but that we keep vibrancy, energy, activity within our town centres. To cut a very, very long story short, we were awarded 14, and I will give you the full figure, £14,377,723. I have that ingrained in my memory because I made the mistake of rounding it up one day and broke a spreadsheet. So I memorised the exact number. So £14.3 million from the Future High Streets Fund, which has been topped up with a further £5.3 million investment from the Borough Council and further investment on top of that from the County Council. And basically what we put in our bid to this fund was that we wanted to make the absolute most of the connectivity to the station, the growth opportunities that HS2 is offering, the fact that we have and we can evidence residential growth. And for anyone that's got an interest in planning, we have to count the number of houses that we deliver every year, and Stafford consistently delivers either at or above target for housing delivery. So we've got that track record of residential growth. Underlying it all is COVID recovery and making sure that when we're looking at our town centre, we're thinking very much about the ifs, buts and maybes of what the world might look like and how it will operate going forwards. So I can't go into too much detail at this stage. I've put up a picture of the Market Square there, which is the focal point of both the town centre and our bid. So the Market Square basically will become the place that we want to have an increased programme of events. We want to have more community uses. We want any businesses that occupy units around the market square to be able to spill out onto that space. We want it to support the development that's within the Shire Hall. So it's a really, really important project. A couple of the others that we've also got some funding for do look at bringing some residential addresses into the town centre, but that's not at the expense of having, it's a planning term, active ground floor uses. Basically, things that people can do, services they might want to access. So we're not taking any of that energy, any of that footfall out of the town centre. I've added a note that this is now part of the Stafford Town Centre Transformation Programme, which is a bit of a mouthful, but I couldn't think of a shorter title. Essentially, what we're saying is we've done really, really well. We've got lots of capital investment. The borough and county councils are putting their money in it too. We're absolutely behind this. But what about the other things that help to make high street work? So how do we tackle things like long-term vacant units? How do we start building relationships with landlords that maybe aren't based in Stafford? What's the business support we're offering? What we want to do is create that wraparound support. Another one which is always popular is we'll be looking at our parking strategy. So now that we've an idea of what the town centre is going to look like in the 5 to 10 years, we then need to work out strategically how we're going to deliver parking. And that's not just in terms of location, it's the type of parking and how that fits to people's needs. So that is an absolutely massive project there. Moving completely away then from the town centre, but absolutely linked together. You might have heard about Meesbrook, which is our garden community proposal. So, oh gosh, 2 years ago, I think it was now, we were awarded £750,000 by Homes England to look to develop plans for what's known as a garden community. So basically in sort of old money, a kind of a new town. So we've put you on a map there so you can see it, but it's generally speaking, the area sort of around Swinnerton between Yarnfield and Millmease. So the proposal that we put forward to government was that this site could deliver up to 10,000 homes, 16,000 jobs with employment land and a significant amount of green space. So what we're doing is going through lots and lots of technical studies to basically say, can the site actually do that? And it's quite a lengthy process, which is why you might hear about Meesbrook every now and again, and then things will go quiet. It's purely because we have to do things like, can you get water to the site? And when you've got water there, how do you move it around? And what's the energy strategy? And what's the transport strategy? And how many houses can you fit in so that this is a beautiful place to live? And what do you do with your green space? There's lots and lots of that going on. At the same time, we're also looking at our local plan, which has to be revised. So we're at a reasonably early stage of that at the moment. And what the Meesbrook project is doing is gathering enough evidence to say to the local plan, we should be in the local plan because this is a good development site. So that's where that's moving at the moment. I think what's important here is to say, this is like designing a town on a blank page. So you don't have to think about what do I need to do to the road network to make this happen? And those houses are a bit close together, how do we put some more in? It's literally starting from scratch. So innovation, carbon neutrality, all those kinds of things build into this. But underpinning it is, oh, and by the way, we've got a superb town centre in Stafford. So we link those two things back together. The Eastgate project, I'll be really honest, this is my only slide without a photo. I don't like it, but there aren't any lovely drawings yet of this because it's a little bit early on. And I didn't want to use a picture of the vacant magistrates court because it looks a little bit grim because it's been empty for a while now. But basically, Eastgate is something that originated from the One Public Estate programme, which is basically where the Borough Council were given some money to look at master planning whether the buildings within public ownership around the Eastgate area, which is primarily county council buildings, the former magistrates court, what can be done there to regenerate that area. And so the updates so far are that not so long ago, the county council have acquired the former magistrates court, and they're now doing a piece of work to basically look at, again, commercially, what works there. We're also looking at the Wedgwood building, which is the very, very tall building, which is largely unoccupied now, and also the area at St Chad's. So that's a county council led project, and it's moving at quite a pace. And as with everything that we do at the moment, we have to nod to COVID to make sure that what we're doing is fit for purpose in a very different business landscape. Another county council led project within the town centre, which absolutely nods to our requirement for having things to do, experiences, reasons for people to come into the town centre, is the Staffordshire History Centre project. So this has been in development for a little while now. The county council are applying to the Heritage Lottery Fund for funding, and it will bring all of the county records under one roof. If anyone's familiar with the current record office, this is quite a different feel. This is really, really, really exciting from a heritage point of view, in building a story for bringing people into Stafford. So hopefully, once the HLF funding has progressed to a conclusion, there'll be a bit more to say on that one as well. So there's some absolutely ginormous projects going on, and what happens next? So across all of these projects, we have to make sure that what we're doing is commercially viable, commercially deliverable, that it's what people want. And it's really important that this isn't just an academic process of saying, well, we think this is what we need. We think this is what the market can deliver. We really need to understand what residents, businesses and visitors to Stafford think about these proposals. And they're all getting to a point where we can share a much greater level of detail with you. So the next time that I come and talk to the Chamber will be with a lot more detail, hopefully. So this is hopefully just giving you a flavour of what's to come. And then finally, this ongoing programme of business support, and that's kind of where I have an ask for all of you, is I need to understand what kinds of things local businesses see as an area where the public sector can step in and help and support. So I apologise now if I start badgering you for your ideas and thoughts. As promised, that was a whistle-stop tour. We've got some time for questions on this section. I'm going to do the traditional only questions, but I'm then going to stop sharing my screen. So if there are any questions, I can take them now.
Happy to take questions in the chat and physically as well, physically or off your screen, if that makes sense for those of you that are sharing your camera. Has anybody got any questions for Michelle about the presentation? Michael Smith, you've got your hand up. Hi, Michael.
Hello there. Yeah, I'm the CEO of Stafford Railway Building Society, and we employ about 50 people in the Market Square. So I'm more than happy to get involved.
Wonderful.
I'm more than happy for any chats that you want of what we see for the Market Square. So I really just to say thank you very much for a good and meaningful presentation, and just really want to show our hand that we're willing and able to support and get involved.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Michael, that's fantastic. I should have said at the beginning, actually, apologies. If Michelle and Hayley are happy, we'll probably give out your details at the end. So if we don't manage to get around everybody today, they'll be able to contact you directly for anything that they can support with, really, or any questions that they might have offline. that we won't be able to deal with today. Anybody else got anything for Michelle, or anything about the presentation today? All a bit quiet, Michelle.
I whip up a whirlwind in people's minds because I have to cram so much in.
No, it's not a problem. I'm sure once we give out your details afterwards, Michelle, there'll be some people sort of looking for some more updates, or probably just curious as to how they can get involved with
absolutely
everything that's going on within Stafford. Fantastic, Michelle. That's great. Hayley, are you okay to go next?
I will just share screen with you now.
Brill, thank you.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Hayley Smith, and I work at the Borough Council alongside Michelle Smith. And I'm here really to have a chat with you about homeless prevention and a little bit of the work that Stafford Borough Council do, and a little bit of a vision that we have going forward. Massively links into the work that Michelle is doing with regards to sort of expanding our communities. And as our communities grow, we know that they're going to be diversifying as well. And we just want to make sure that everyone is aware of the sort of support that's available out there, really. So this is a bit of a clunky bit of the slide. I wasn't quite sure how to start with an introduction, but sometimes I'm not 100% sure that everybody knows what the council do with regards to homelessness. So I thought it'd be useful to start with this so you can kind of see where I'm coming from the rest of the presentation. And when I say I work for housing at the council, it's a very strange thing to say because we don't own any properties. So you wouldn't be forgiven for saying, well, what do you do? And our role as the local housing authority is that we provide free advice and assistance to all. And that's available for everybody to access. And that ranges from numerous different queries, landlord and tenant disputes. We still have people coming to us saying, my landlord's written on the back of a fag packet asking me to leave. We can provide general advice on social housing, on security of tenure, possession proceedings. We give advice on mortgages. It's not quite our bag, but it's in there somewhere. And we just provide general housing advice for those that are just querying whether they're at risk of homelessness or whether there's a housing need. We have a large prevention area in the work that we do, and this is really where we like our focus to be. And the idea behind that is we prevent those at risk of being homeless from becoming homeless. So those that may be struggling with rent or mortgage repayments, those that are in insecure housing, being asked to leave by family and friends, we get involved at an earlier stage to provide advice on housing. And for the crisis intervention, where that doesn't always happen because people do bury their heads in the sand, we provide accommodation, emergency accommodation, long-term accommodation for those who are eligible and homeless. And we also provide outreach support for rough sleepers or those at risk of rough sleeping. And how do we do that? How do you access the services nowadays? So a lot of people do contact us via email. We've got our office hours. We are a 24/7 service. We do run out of hours. We have a really good website that has a self-assessment tool that you can Google. I was going to put the website link, but I don't think anyone does website links anymore. So I always just say what to type in on Google to get the hits. And we're over the telephone. But for me, the most important thing that we've done and that we sustain, and something that I'm really proud of, is that you can talk to us, we're real people. You can come into the Civic Centre and you can meet us, obviously COVID compliant, but that's something that we've sustained and that we're going to be sustaining long term, is that you can come and speak to somebody about housing. We are real people behind the scenes. So what is homelessness and what is rough sleeping? So when I speak about what I do, I think a lot of people have an image in their heads of somebody with a sleeping bag, somebody under a bridge that's rough sleeping and that's out that night. And absolutely, that is part of the work that we do, but it's only a small percentage of the work. It's about 10% of our overall workload. And Shelter have done a really useful diagram that I'm sharing, which shows that rough sleeping is the tip of the iceberg. Now, unfortunately, this diagram is a little bit dated. It's from 2018. We have seen a decline in rough sleeping since that date. But it does demonstrate that that's the visible side, the most acute need of housing. What sits beneath that surface in this Titanic iceberg is those that are in temporary accommodation that fall within the homelessness category, but that you wouldn't necessarily see. These aren't people that are sleeping out rough on the streets, but are people that have approached their local authority because they are homeless for various different reasons. And they do require emergency accommodation and long-term housing from the local authority. And then what sits behind that further, and this is where we're not very good at collecting data on, are those that are at risk of homelessness. Now, Shelter says that there are millions of households that are at risk of homelessness. And what we talk about here are those that have housing costs that are more than 50% of their income, those that remain staying with family and friends, but because for various reasons they don't approach the local authority for help, and or potentially don't realise that it's there, people that are potentially too proud to come and ask for help. But we know that we've got numbers that are sofa surfing. We know that we've got numbers that are living in unsuitable accommodation that may be due to their health needs, that are struggling to get up and down the stairs, that are struggling to access core facilities within their home. And those are people that we class at risk of homelessness. And that is a wide-reaching element, but the element that we want to reach out to really when we look at what our strategic plans are for reducing homelessness within Stafford. So what I'm really here to talk to you about today is the whole picture of homelessness, not just rough sleeping, but those that are either homeless or at risk of homelessness as well. Okay, now I share this slide quite a bit because when I talk about homelessness, we automatically think that this is a housing issue, that we need to find a roof over somebody's head, we need to put them into accommodation, and that's it, that's our job done. And that is not the case at all. When we talk about homelessness, we can't talk about it without talking about all the other social and economic aspects that go with somebody that's being homeless. And that's something that the team within the council really do work towards. Finding somebody accommodation is such a small proportion of the work that we do. But what we look at doing is addressing the underlying needs as to why somebody is homeless. And what we want to do is make that new tenancy, that new home, as sustainable as possible so that we don't see people coming back through the service. And what we know is that 60% of the applicants that approach us at Housing Options in Stafford are experiencing other social economic problems that have a direct impact on their housing. And that can range from mental health, from offending behaviour, from drug and alcohol misuse, relationship breakdowns, social exclusion, emotional and well-being problems. And without addressing those wider needs, we're not going to make this accommodation sustainable. And what I often use as an example is my table analogy. And I say that everybody, every single person, everyone on this call has support networks in place, whether we realise it or not. We have our jobs that provide us with security. We have our homes. We have our family. We have our dogs. We have our pets. We have our hobbies. We have various different things that provide us with that support and make us stable. When you start taking away those support, those legs of the table becomes very unsteady. And some people can stay standing on 3 legs, just about. They may, for example, have a relationship breakdown and lose that support network. But the table's still standing, they've got a steady job, they've got a steady home, they've got other things in their lives that they're maintaining. They're managing potentially any drug and alcohol issues that are ongoing. But something else starts to wobble on that table. They may have had a bad day in the office. There may have been something else that's going on. And you start taking away those other support needs, and that table starts to fall and that person hits crisis. And this is effectively what we see day to day with homelessness. We often see that some of the triggers that started the person on this journey happened months, years ago. It could have started with a relationship breakdown that led to somebody going from 1 glass of wine a night to 2 or 3 glasses of wine a night, that then impacted on their ability to make a 8:30 meeting in the morning, and impacts on their ability to do their job. And that impacts then on further things. And we start to see debt, we start to see people going behind in rent and mortgage repayments, and people come through our front door as homeless. And I just really wanted to be able to demonstrate that there's much wider issues going on here than just providing somebody with a roof over their head. There's some stats there that over 1/3 of applicants have mental health or emotional wellbeing problems, and 1/3 have a history of substance misuse. And in Stafford, why people are being asked to leave their accommodation, the biggest cause is being asked to leave by family and friends. It's relationship breakdowns. And I think coming at the back end of lockdown, that hasn't changed at all. And that's something that we've seen throughout the pandemic. It's end of private sector tenancy, which is quite a well-known cause of homelessness, and also domestic abuse as well. So why am I talking to the Chambers of Commerce about this? when I look at the overall homelessness strategy for Stafford and what we want to do to change this long term, I genuinely see businesses as part of the solution. And I've just put on this slide a really important stat that I want to share, and that is that 1 in 3 people at risk of homelessness are in work. So we often see this and think that this is a problem for people that are in receipt of welfare benefits, that have various different aspects going on with their lives. But the reality that we're facing is that is 1 in 3. And in Stafford, that's higher than the national average. The national average tends to be about 1 in 4. So we are seeing people coming through our door who are in employment and at risk of homelessness. So it was absolutely crucial for me to start conversations with local businesses in Stafford about how we can change that picture and what the role is for businesses locally. So this is where we talk about how we can design out homelessness. Now, a lot of the ideas that I have here put together by businesses in the community. They've run a series of webinars, and there is a link here to their toolkit. And I think that their webinar is still available online for people to watch. And this has come from businesses to businesses about what their role can be in designing out homelessness long term. And they talk about a positive pathway model. We always like talking about models. And the first thing is all about prevention. So how can we prevent those that are employees from becoming homeless and facing homelessness? The next stage is the help, the crisis intervention. So if we're aware that somebody is homeless, somebody is rough sleeping, what can we do to help them get into recovery? And then the third part, and this is the part that I find really exciting and I really see a role for Chambers of Commerce, is how do we create positive pathways for the future so that we're no longer responding to need, but that we're strategically designing out homelessness as upstream as possible. Okay. So I'm going to start here talking about universal prevention and homeless prevention. Sorry, if there's a bit of rummage in the background, I've got a colleague who had an hour walk this morning and a swim, but that's not enough, and is still attacking my daughter's Barbie house. So I do apologise for that. So I'll talk about universal prevention. And what we talk about here is about workplace wellbeing and talking to our employees and seeing really about whether those aspects that I've spoken about earlier are going on in their lives. Are we able to flag those first signs of homelessness, those really early indicators that something may be going on, so that we can signpost to relevant support? And I know that these conversations are difficult. I know that they are. And so in the middle of the pandemic, we put together a Talk to Us campaign where myself and colleagues with health and wellbeing put together a website with all the signposting and support services that are available within the borough, so that if you are having those conversations, that you're able to access this tool and signpost those that may need assistance to the right places. The other part that we have to say is with sort of COVID recovery, we know this is something that's going to be sort of talked about more and more, with furlough schemes potentially coming to an end, and we're starting to see restrictions being lifted on possession proceedings as well. It's becoming more and more likely that people are going to start flagging potential issues with regards to housing, with regards to debt, emotional well-being. And that's where we really want you to start having those conversations and sort of directing people to be able to get the help they need. What to do with crisis prevention and relief? To share that knowledge with employees and disseminate it, share it with contacts, share it with other people within the community and within businesses. The more people who know about us and know about this, the better. And referring into our service. If you do see a rough sleeper, refer it in. If you are aware that somebody is at risk of homelessness, and obviously you've got their consent, they want to be referred through, acknowledge that we are there and refer people into us. And then there's some sort of really practical things that we're sort of reaching out for businesses for. And we look at skill-based employee volunteering. And there's various different charities within the borough, supported accommodation schemes. You may be aware on the Newport Road of Eagle House that provides supported accommodation to people at risk of homelessness. And it's about being able to potentially go out and volunteer. And I've used one of those examples as IT skills, because this is one that we come across again and again. Accessing services is crucial, that people are able to have access to computers and the internet to be able to do that. whether it's claiming for benefits, whether it's applying for a job. We all know that you need IT skills. And often the computers in public services may not be of the best standard. So we're always got a plug for IT skills there. And alternative giving schemes. So this is something that is set up that you may have seen around Birmingham and the combined authorities area. And this is where local authorities set up an alternative giving scheme with a number of local businesses or charities, which is for people that want to help with rough sleepers, that want to donate to rough sleepers, may see people begging in the street and aren't quite sure the best way to respond. And in those sort of situations, we look at alternative giving. So all the money goes into one pot, and then local charities are able to apply for that money for grant funding to be able to help homeless people on the ground, whether that might be for rent in advance for a property, it may be for somebody moving in that's not got anything, that may need some bedding and some furniture. It may be to get somebody a mobile phone so they can stay in contact with their drug and alcohol worker. There's so many various ways that we're able to use that money. And there's some really practical things that local businesses can do. Okay. And then creating pathways. So this is the sort of long-term systemic ways that we're able to sort of look into how we respond to homelessness within the borough. One of the suggestions that's always put forward is around removing barriers to recruitment. I always remember growing up being told to go around local businesses and hand in my CV and go and talk to people and go and speak to the manager and make a good impression. And I think that sort of way of recruiting is slowly dying. It's all online, it's all internet-based applications. And for people that have been experiencing homelessness, that have got numerous support needs going on, it's not always the most user-friendly. So there's some potentials around removing barriers to recruitment, encouraging work-based experience and volunteering. When we have people in emergency accommodation, the biggest struggle that we've got is social inclusion. People just no longer feel part of the community, they no longer feel part of society. And our biggest barrier is overcoming that and bringing people back into reality. And we have a lot of people that need a routine, that need something for their day. And there's so much that we get from volunteering opportunities for those that are facing homelessness, to be able to get that routine back in place and to feel that they're giving something back to the community again. And then the other one that we put in here is around job security and certainty of hours. One of our biggest flags with those who are homeless are those coming to us for 0-hour contracts, who are trying to make rent payments but have no idea what their next month's salary is going to be, their next month's pay is going to be, and end up having to negotiate some quite difficult welfare benefit systems to be able to try and keep topping up their income with benefits. But when their income changes every month, it causes various different issues down the line. And we also talk about flexibility with work. So employees able to attend appointments with regards to their housing? Are they able to come into the council to meet? Are they able to go to property viewings? Are they able to go to citizens' advice to speak about any outstanding debts that they've got? And being able to give people some time to be able to resolve those issues. I do have a lovely example within Stafford of a lad that was working in a local business and was becoming very sort of uneasy in the workplace, and that was something the managers has picked up on. Was sort of snapping back at a few colleagues and was starting to just get a little bit tense. And after a few discussions, they found out that he was sofa surfing, so staying in different places every night, not knowing where he was going to be going next. And those tensions were starting to enter into the workplace. And they turned up at the council as homeless that night. And we were able to secure accommodation in a local house share that was close to his work that evening. And that was something that was addressed on the same day. Now, that was a very, very nice case study. I'm not saying everything's going to be as simple as that, but it is an example of where behaviour in the workplace can be a sign of something else that's going on. And I've also included here a nice story with regards to a coffee company in Cardiff. Help people who are homeless, both through employment in the cafe and that led them on to other jobs in education, and how other businesses were able to support that business that was working with rough sleepers by using them for their breakfasts and corporate events. So there's even indirect ways that local businesses can assist those that are helping those that are homeless. Okay, so there's a lot of information that I've provided there, and there's going to be some things that you probably think, yeah, that's something that businesses can absolutely do. And there may be other things that I'm not naive enough, I know they're going to be extremely challenging and that are going to lead to longer conversations and more involvement. And really what I'm here today is to start that conversation and to see what ideas you have. And I'd absolutely love you to come back in contact with me to discuss those ideas, or potentially explore further some of the ideas that I've got. My details are on the bottom of that slide. Please do get in contact, and there's the generic contact details for the housing options team if they're needed as well. So that's the end of my slide, and if there's any questions, please feel free to ask.
Fantastic, Hayley. Thank you so much. Actually really important for Stafford, and I know somebody's already popped something in the chat just in reference to that, just about somebody they might know that's sleeping rough. So I don't know whether you'd want to just pick that up, Hayley, just in the chat there. Brilliant, fantastic. Has anybody got any questions about Hayley's presentation for the moment? Michael?
Thanks for that, Hayley. Just a little bit of practical help, please. We suffer quite a few problems in the alleyway down by the side of the building society. It varies, it comes and goes. Some people that decide to sleep rough there can be quite pleasant. Some people not so pleasant. And we have great difficulty in moving them on. They block the doors, they use our passageway as their toilet, and they certainly put members off coming down the alleyway. And actually we get a flood of complaints from people asking what we are doing about it. What would you recommend that we do to help improve that position?
I think I know exactly where you mean. Is it Bank Passage?
Bank Passage, yes.
Yes, I do. And I know those rough sleepers. And I think this is also in response to Greg's question in the chat. Sorry for my untimely smile. As I opened the chat, I saw the other message about bringing my puppy to Bamerton Farm. So yes, with regards to Bank Passage and rough sleepers in the town centre, what I would say is when we become aware of rough sleepers, we go out with our outreach team and we offer accommodation. Now, people aren't always ready to accept that offer of accommodation. Rough sleeping is often entrenched. People have been doing it for years and years, and changing that behaviour straight away is massively overwhelming. And even when we put people into accommodation, they still might go back out in the daytime to continue some of those behaviours because it's ingrained. It's something that they've done for years and years. When we have got an ongoing problem with rough sleepers in the area, I would say is to keep referring through. We do have the street link referral, and we work really closely with the police, with our community safety teams, and with our street scene colleagues as well, to be able to sort of manage what's going on in the town centre. So that if rough sleeping turns into, for example, aggressive begging, if rough sleeping means that they're leaving a lot of rubbish behind, if it means that they've got tents up, that could potentially be further work that we're able to do to respond to that. So you've got my details now, and if you're not getting anywhere with sort of doing general referrals, please do contact me and we'll be able to link in. But it's not always as straightforward as us just going out and saying, here's an offer of accommodation, and they'll follow us in. It has happened on occasion, but often it requires a good few months of us learning about what somebody's history is, why they've not accepted accommodation before. But we do keep trying, and that's a very similar story for, I know, the gentleman that's rough sleeping at the moment on Eastgate.
Yeah, I mean, we've had them there for 3 and 4 weeks at a time. And I say, if they're not rude and abusive, that's not a problem. It can get a bit of a security risk. It's when they're there's a threesome there, no problem. It's when they get smashing glasses and the rest, that's when it gets a problem.
No, absolutely. And that's what we need to know. And I know the street scene lads that go out that are doing the litter picking at 5 a.m, they link in so much with us. They tell us who's out sleeping. They'll tell us where the rubbish is being left, what's being left, so that we can address that appropriately. And equally, it links in with our community safety and our police teams. with regards to any sort of orders in the town centre, if they're not to be any tents, etc., so that we can link in. It is a little bit of a carrot and a stick approach. I'm the nice side of this. I'm the side that go out and really encourage people to take up accommodation and look at those support needs. And nobody likes doing this, but we do have the stick approach for when people just refuse to engage and carry on with that antisocial behaviour.
That's fine, thank you.
Brilliant, fantastic, Hayley. And I think both Michelle and Hayley just brings to the point actually that if we're going to move Stafford on in the way that we want to, both of your Michelle obviously doing it, you know, having the funding to do so, but Hayley also having that opportunity to take people off is both the most important parts of getting Stafford moving, is the regeneration and actually helping the people within Stafford as well. So it's great to hear from both of you today. Any questions from anybody else before we go today? I know that we are coming up to time, so apologies. I know there's only a couple of minutes left before we finish the webinar today. Just in case there isn't, I just want to thank both Michelle and Hayley. Fantastic presentations today. And like I said, we will be sharing both Michelle and Hayley's details after this, so you will get an email just with that. As I said, we have recorded it, so we will be sending you a link to that as well. If you want to look at any of the webinars on our library, on the Chamber's website, they are all free, so you can watch them at your leisure at any time. I know we're all exceptionally busy people at the moment, so it'd be fantastic if you can have a look at those as well. I just want to wish you all a fantastic Thursday, and thank you very much again to Michelle and Hayley.
Sorry for my untimely smile, as I happened to a very similar story for sleeping at the moment on Eastgate.
Yeah, I mean, we've had 3 and 4 weeks at a time. If they're not rude and abusive, it can get a bit of a security. It's when they're